Willow Golden, and you're watching Art Kitchen. I'm interviewing Nicki Koethner today, who is a multimedia artist, an expressive arts psychotherapist, and an educator. Through her work, Nicki supports people in transforming trauma into empowerment through creativity. Nicki's devoted to playfulness, joy, and embodied earth-based spirituality. Nicki has a private practice in German and English in Berkeley, California, and is adjunct faculty at Sophia University and CIIS, as well as supervisor at Art of Health and Healing in the Bay Area. Nicki is on the board of the International Expressive Arts Therapy Association and Body Tales, a group that creates improvised movement theater with a focus on somatic awareness. You can learn more about Nicki and her work at express-explore-expand.com. This is the second of a two-part interview, so make sure you check out both. What do you feel like is the relationship between the creative process and the healing process?
I mean, for me, the creative process is basically part of the life force. And trauma, other experiences can interrupt the life force and can really block certain ways of our expression. Judgments we accumulate throughout our lives of what's right, what's wrong, I'm ugly, I'm beautiful, whatever it is, all these judgments and stories we live with can really block that life force. That for me is just like we are following where our heart starts beating. And when we are in the creative process, I do believe it helps us to go back to that innocence, that aliveness, that curiosity around our own way of being, thinking, encountering, and processing. And I do think that some of the experiences we make in life are unbearable or intolerable, and in that, having something to move that energy allows the life force to flow again, and that's what healing is for me. And healing has a lot to do with being in touch with our authentic true selves, and whatever that means, without worrying so much what is he or she thinking of me, or what did my teacher or my parents tell me that I should do. I was never good in coloring into lines, although sometimes now I find it soothing and calming, you know, to just do mandalas in a pattern, you know. It can be very calming and very soothing and grounding, you know. So it's and that way I see them very connected, you know, the healing and the creativity that allows me not to just follow a story or know what's right and wrong and how things should be. And it's allowing not just the linear process to take over the rational mind, but it allows me to tap into also the wholeness of my being, which is sound, color, vibration, breath, you know, and it isn't just words or thinking or the logical mind that wants to understand and explain and rationalize. So, and that was, for my own healing, was a lot about where I realized, okay, even studying expressive art therapy, I felt like, oh, I'm getting more in my head again. And I need to do something about my body, actually. I mean, my body, and when I also look at my parents, my aunts, uncles, whatever, you know, I think that's, or our culture on the whole, there's such a split between body and mind. And I said, okay, and I'm very good in intellectually bypassing stuff, so I decided, okay, I need to go back. And I had also a complicated relationship to my own body. So I said, okay, I need to get back to the body. That's where it starts. That's my vehicle, how I experience this life right now. And so I started the dancing and the healing, like authentic movement and all of that. So, and that really helped me more and more to, be at home here, you know. And have less body self-image issues or other stuff that also can come up. So,
there's so many pieces in there that feel really rich to me. I feel like there's these really common misconceptions about art therapy and expressive art therapy, that it's like, if you have trauma, like, then you'll have a picture of it to look at and understand it better, or you'll find things that are like not conscious and bring them into consciousness. And like those are both true about art therapy, but it's like not where the richness is. The richness is, like you're saying, that you said so well, like in the process of like, we're always doing this and this, and then to like actually have a different experience with yourself, and to be connecting those multiple parts, and to be bringing out the intelligences besides this intelligence.
Yes.
Yeah. I really liked the way that I won't even try, but the way that you articulated a lot of those things of just like the energy movement piece that I think often gets really overlooked. Probably because our intellectual brain doesn't get it, so we can't talk about it. Yeah. So with your own personal creative process, what would happen if you didn't create? Do you feel like it's a necessary part of your health?
I mean, that's for me is a question of definition of health, you know. I would say I can live without it, but I would not be as happy, not feel as alive and vibrant and joyful.
Yeah.
And I know that when I don't move in a day, or if I'm only inside, it's really hard. I get really antsy. I mean, I also do meditation and sitting meditation, although the sitting meditation, I notice it's not really my type 100% because I need to move. And there's just a lot of energy that wants to be moved. And, you know, even the way I talk with my hands and like that, and that's has always been the case. And, but so in that way, you know, I think it is about, but the role of imagination, I think it's what's the key to me in that, because let's say I would be imprisoned, and I don't have anything around me to create with directly, like in terms of a material. I mean, I still have my body, my breath, I can still move, you know, that's always there and available no matter where I am. But it's also, I think it's about, is my imagination available, and and that I think is also again the healing and the creative process. And what's similar is like, how much can I access a level of imagination that helps me to shift my perspective, even in the worst circumstances that I'm in. I mean, the movie that comes to mind is, I think it's called The Beautiful Mind, or maybe not Beautiful Mind, but anyway, it was about a father in the concentration camp telling his son,
Life is beautiful.
Life is beautiful, that's right. You know, and I do think it was so powerful in showing how it makes a difference, how we look at something, you know, and how that makes a difference. It doesn't take away war, suffering, rape, or any of those things, you know. But I do think that if we have access to our imagination, that's what I think is necessary. And yeah, and the little things, not always needing to have a material around to do it, but in my mind, or also if I can just, the body, the nature, the breath is always here, you know? So that's part, and you know, part of health for me is also being in touch with nature, being in touch with something that's larger than human. So not in a formal sense like, oh, I always have to do this or that.
Yeah.
But definitely makes a difference. If I don't move, I notice there's a difference. And right now I also supervise expressive arts interns in the Contra Costa medical centers who bring art to people in the hospital. People who can't move or can't leave their beds, you know. And I think it does make a difference to bring an image there, for example. They might not create anything themselves, but just showing, for example, a postcard image for people helps them to go to another place. And when I used to work with a man in jail, where I did theater for change with men in jail who committed violence, I also always was thinking about, these men can't go to the beach, or they can't do this or that, but they can imagine. They can imagine themselves being there while you're in prison, you know. So that I think is essential.
Yeah, and that's like a whole other level of like people saying like, oh, I'm not creative, like you know, and most of the people who say that have the resources and the availability, they could go buy art supplies. And so then to take it to the next level of like, if you're imprisoned or you're bedridden, that there's still this human drive for creativity and imagination. That's a cool way of looking at it. Yeah. Have you worked as an expressive arts therapist? Have you worked with a lot of people who don't consider themselves creative?
Oh, for sure. And right now I am also teaching at Severe University a class called Creative Expression. And a lot of people actually took the class, or some of them, not necessarily because they will use it as therapists, but also for their own process because they feel stuck or they feel like they have a block. Has definitely also entered my private practice, you know, with patients or with clients there. And I think it's very common.
Yeah.
You know, because I think when we start being born, we get a lot of stories around whether we're good or not good in something. We're good in singing or not, or we're good in drawing, writing. So people have opinions about that and tell themselves a story. I can't do that. While I do believe as a human being, you have it inherent in you. And then the stories we get is what blocks us and stops us to be creative. So I do, a lot of people, and I do think the major blocks are judgments, stories. Sometimes it's trauma, and that brings me back to the story of, I took a drumming class at the women's drum camp, and the woman was saying, you know, some of you might have very strong emotion coming up while you're drumming because out of a sudden you are connecting two parts of your brain that might have been disconnected, so strong emotions can come up. And I do think that's very true. And, you know, trauma and other experiences can really cut something where we don't have access to the right brain. And there's no communication.
As a defense mechanism sometimes, right, that you can't handle it, so you kind of compartmentalize it. And then the expressive arts that's connecting these different intelligences, it's like, oh no, now I have to deal with you.
That, and and I also, you know, in trauma you often see with children who have some trauma, also adults, but you see repetitive play. Things will repeat themselves until they are understood or heard in some way or another. So it's, and I notice in myself that now in the last couple of years, I feel like the flow is back and I have less judgments and stories around it. And I also notice my own experience being improvised storyteller. In the beginning, there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of like afterwards backlash of like, I wish I had said this or had done this or why. And now I'm more relaxed about it. I mean, it still happens and I still think about sometimes, I could have done this or that, but it's not as strong. And I do think for me it has a lot to do also with a dissolution of identity around it or less attachment. And just also trusting, and it's not about not wanting to bring forth quality or something also that is, you know, I do think it's okay to want to improve or do something different or better or whatever, but there is something more about let's have fun. And or let's bring it out, and might touch somebody, might not touch somebody, but the importance is also my own engagement.
And it sounds like in some ways like a surrendering to the process instead of having to be in charge of it.
Yes. Yeah, there's more the process rather than the product, you know, but the product is also, I mean, I do look at beautiful things, you know, it's not that the product is totally unimportant, but I mean, the work that I do is mainly, it's about the process. And for me, it's about the process of being in touch with the life force.
Yeah. Do you have any specific suggestions for people who either don't consider themselves creative but want to connect with their creative process, or for people who maybe they're artists but their art doesn't really feel like it's coming from this deep, authentic place, and how to really develop that relationship with the process?
Try to play, find ways of playing, and you know, and I mean, there's also allow yourself to listen to your dreams, because I think dreams, if you look at it, is like when our ego, our part that needs to function during the day, to go from one place to another, is shut down. And so then out of a sudden, all these not everybody remembers their dreams. I do believe everybody dreams, but not everybody remembers it. But it allows you to freely create or be in the creative process, in my eyes, in the dream. So pay attention to your dreams, work with your dreams, and just see what comes out of those. You know, I also encourage people to just for a moment, if you can, hang upside down, you know, and look from the world from an upside down place. Like put your head down and see how the world looks when you look in that way at the world. Go, if you can, be with the child and just follow the child to get in touch with your own natural capacity to play, to create, to be in that flow, in that I'm following what is, drawing me. And I mean, there are some other things, you know, you could do I like what in the artist way describes, you know, you just start writing without worrying about grammar, just write down a lot, you know, that can help. And find places where there is a non-judgmental environment, where you can drop your stories, where you have somebody also a witness or some people around you that can hold you in that, if you have a lot of fear around showing yourself in that way, you know. But find also other co-players with you, co-creators who are non-judgmental. I think that art school or dance school, all of those places can sometimes be really damaging in terms of
the playfulness.
The playfulness, and also, I think damaging to the ego in a way that's not helpful. You know, I think it's good when we can get out of, our ego can get out of the way, but I think it's crashing in a way or critical in a way that's damaging to the soul, the psyche. Sometimes, not always. I also believe in art-based education, you know, or going through the process and learning in that way. But I do think it makes a difference how we are holding it.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's create.
All right, the end. Thanks for watching, and remember to like, share, and subscribe. We want as many people as possible to find out about the inspiring artists who come on Art Kitchen. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/MoGoldenVideos, and you can find and support this project at patreon.com/Mo.